Are you feeling the calling to start or grow a business that is so aligned with you and everything that makes up who you are? Do you know that there has to be a way to do this without so much hustle and without chasing the latest shiny object, but you're just not sure how? You can definitely have a dream business that improves, not consumes your life, that allows you to work with soulmate clients while helping you and your family financially and in all ways. You can elevate yourself to be the entrepreneur who has all of her desires. I'm going to show you how on the Elevated Femmes movement. Today, I'm very excited to chat with Melanie Richmond. She's an executive well-being coach, and she's going to be sharing with us her story of how she got started with her business and all the amazing things that she helps other women like you with. So I'm really excited to ask her questions and share more of her knowledge with you guys. So let's kick it right off. So Melanie, I'm just gonna hand it right over to you so you can tell us a little bit more about what you do, how you got started with what you're doing, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks so much for having me on the show, Julia. I'm really excited to be part of your podcast. So again, my name is Melanie Richmond. I am from Canada, Alberta, and I got into the well-being business because of my own journey and struggles working in the corporate world. So growing up, I was a little girl that was always very curious, active, played a lot of sports growing up. And I know that your audience is very health conscious as well. And then decided to go into engineering because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and got involved in that world where it was very male dominated, very productivity focused, and kind of lost track of who I really was and the lifestyle that I wanted because I was so focused on producing. And I know a lot of us can feel that pressure being in the corporate world. So from having that additional pressure, I had some health struggles that came up with that. And the big ones were hair loss at a very early stage in my early 20s. And nobody should have to experience that part of their life, but I did. And also with my fingers and toes, I had Raynaud's, so high levels of cortisol in my body. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't maintaining relationships with myself and others. So all of these things really snowballed really early on in my career because I wasn't paying attention to well-being. So that's kind of a glimpse of how easily you can derail, right? If you're not taking care of your health, your mental, your emotional well-being. So now I help driven professionals that want to up-level their career and life goals by optimizing their well-being so that they can keep that competitive edge. Because in order for you to stand out in the market, in any industry, you have to look at it holistically. You have to look at it from all of those different well-being lenses. And so that's kind of the short version of the story. And we can get into a little bit more of what happened after I kind of burnt out and moved into that well-being realm.
I'm very curious as to like how you actually crossed over, because I think like in my case, I left a job that I actually really enjoyed, but I was pregnant with my first kid. I had a long commute and I was not going to see him. I would be like putting him in his crib at night. And that was something that just gave me so much anxiety, and it was not planned. It wasn't like my husband and I had, saved up for a few years, saved my salary for a few years before I could say, okay, I'm going to just quit my job. It was sort of a decision that was made like within, I would say, a month. And I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was making okay money where it was, we were going to feel it, or we were going to feel that lack of income. So I'm just curious, because you were in engineering, so I'm going to assume that you probably had like a well-paying job that you just were like, it's not worth it to me anymore. So I'm just curious how you
Yeah, and I want to
Prepared
just
for a
add,
meeting, or if you were just like, no, I'm just like, if you just woke up one day, you were like, I'm done.
I was at a point where I felt like I wanted to quit on some days and was done because we were working in northern Alberta on some major construction projects that were over like multi-million, like 100 million plus, and big water treatment plants. And this job site had 100 employees on it, and it was on the construction side when I started boots on the ground. And I was one of two females on the site. So already I was not in that demographic that I was used to, but also you have people of different educational background, and the like productivity was such a big focus of, getting things not done on schedule and on time. So there was a lot more of like that alpha male personality trait coming in. And I kind of lost track of myself and became more like that, in that I was less the caring, understanding, collaborative person that I am. And I kind of transformed into more like that alpha male. And it wasn't working for me. It's not who I am at my core. So I felt really disaligned with myself. So that was the first thing that came up, was not living authentically in that work space. Also working crazy hours at that time, like 14 plus hour days, wow. 10 days in a row with only a 10-day break or 4-day break. So it was really hard physically and mentally. And then emotionally, I wasn't getting that recharge that I needed energetically. So I went on a yoga retreat, and that's kind of what really brought me that aha moment that I can't be living that lifestyle. Like, although I was making more money than I've ever made at that point, it was, you're sacrificing your health, you're sacrificing your relationships, you're sacrificing time with people you love. And I love that you bring up your child, because I think it's an important component of your well-being, is those relationships and how you want to be as a mother, as a worker. So in that yoga retreat, I realized I needed things to change, and I didn't want to go back to what I was doing. So I ended up changing industry a little bit from the construction side into more the consultant side, still in the engineering field. So I don't necessarily think that if you're experiencing a burnout or something like that you necessarily need to say 100% goodbye and do something completely different, but you do need to change what you're doing and understanding, okay, what is it that like I just can't do this anymore. It's draining my soul, it's draining my energy, and have those be at the forefront of what you're going to change. So I ended up changing industries into more professional industry. And I still experience those things within that professional industry as being a consultant, because it was easy to want to help clients meet their deliverables. And it was easy also to be a workaholic. So I really had to work throughout the years on incorporating this well-being lifestyle into everything I did, not just my work, but my home life and time with myself and with my spouse and my friends and the community at large. So yeah, I think sometimes we feel resistance, and it's easy to just want to run away. But sometimes it's the answer is actually to look at it straight on and say, hey, what is this coming from? Because sometimes in my case, it was like the feeling of not being enough. I always wanted to do more and be more. And even though I had switched industry, it's like it was still changing that mindset. And it came from, my upbringing. We all have those things that we carry with us that we get to process through life and become the better version of ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really also eye-opening that you were able to say, okay, I have to step away from this, and like, what options do I have? So for you, it wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna immediately quit my job. You were like, okay, what other option is there for finding something that is a little better for me? And even though even that wasn't like the thing, it still brought you closer to what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to hear from you what, so you sort of came to this moment when you went on your yoga retreat. So that's when you like discovered the real meaning of, like, for you, what well-being means, right? Like what self-care and self-love and all of that entails. I would love to hear a little bit more about like that journey, and then what you think well-being really means and how you tie that into the work that you do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on that retreat, I had the best week of my life. I really had a chance to let go of any expectations that I had of myself. I had a chance to really connect inwards and go back to, what does that little girl, like that inner child of mine, really love and have to offer to the world. And on that yoga retreat, there was also a coach there, and I had never heard of coaching before. And she was also a psychologist that had left her practice to just become a coach. And I thought it was really empowering because I grew up with coaches on the sports side. And it was very empowering to have somebody that believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And from her, after the retreat, I ended up starting to work with her. And that's where I started seeing some mindset shifts. And I started to pivot how I was thinking, how I was living, into really being who I truly was. And with that, that's where I started to make some bigger strides. And then from that, I was like, okay, I want to get more into the coaching business. And it had been on my mind since I met this lady, and I had never really taken the plunge on it. I had done a lot of mindfulness trainings. I've done lots of yoga trainings, mindfulness, meditation, yoga nidras, like energy work. And I had never believed in myself that I can do the coaching as well. And sometimes you do need that external person to support you in that community. So that's where I invested in myself over the last year and a half. And after having my son 2 years ago, he's a pandemic baby, I said, I can't have this beautiful human watch me do something that I'm not 100% passionate about and want to make the impact I want to make in the world. Although I was doing really well within the project management, managing multi-millions, providing potable water to communities, like providing that impact, I knew that my special ability was really helping people find their purpose and living their best life and being their best self. And that's where the well-being came in, because that is one of my top values. Is in order for you to stand out and to be in a really good place, you need that in all of those different categories of your life. It can't just be, your relationship, or it can't just be your work. Like, it has to be very holistically, financially, community-wise. So with having my son, I said, I want to lead by example. And I need to do something that I'm uncomfortable with. And I stepped into helping driven professionals that want help to get to the next level. And something's holding them back. It might be a burnout. It might be a limiting belief. So I help my clients break through those limiting mindsets by doing some mindfulness work, by going inwards, asking the right questions, and then asking even deeper questions. So then we can get to really the core of how can we shift things around and really transform.
That's great. Yeah. And I think that's the key. It's doing that deep work, because otherwise what happens is, kind of like how you shared, is you think that, oh, if I quit my job and go to this other thing, that's going to be the answer. But if you're not changing your mindset and, who you really are, then it's still going to keep coming back. It's going to be this thing that keeps haunting us. And I've definitely experienced that too. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and then everything's going to be perfect. I still, I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, and then quickly realized like, oh, I need something else, because I feel like I felt a little bit of pressure, like I put it on myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like other people, we feel pressure from other people. We feel pressure from ourselves. We feel pressure from society, whatever it is that someone is dealing with. It's usually either internal or external, or a combination of both. And sometimes we need like that guidance to be able to say, no, we don't need that pressure. We're not going to give that pressure any power. We're just going to step into who we are, and, do whatever it is that we're meant to be doing. So I think that your story beautifully illustrates how you were able to connect with that. And it's so funny. It always comes back to slowing down, like listening to that inner voice. I feel like from doing so many interviews now, I think this will be like episode 52. I believe it's 52. So I've spoken with so many entrepreneurs over the past year and a half now that I've had my podcast, and it always goes back to that. It's like that journey of going through our struggles and then finding that key, whatever it is, because it is different for everybody, but it's usually something that kind of like, I don't want to say forces us, but it does sort of like really, it kind of like comes to a point where we just like, we have to do something, right? And
it's our calling. It's our soul that's saying like, you got to come out of its shell and shine
sometimes
out.
it's like a shout. It's like a shouting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing. And I think that whoever's listening to this right now, I hope that you are taking away something big, because things don't have to stay the way they are for you if they're not what you really want them to be. Like if you're in a place, whether it's career or business or relationship or whatever it is, if you have a desire, if you know that something is not right, if you know that there's something better out there, you have your answer. Like you already know what it is. And now it's just time to like work to create that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with us? Anything about well-being or, one thing that I wanted to ask you also is about like that awareness, right? Like developing that self-awareness to say, okay, this isn't what I want anymore. But like, how do you like develop that self-awareness to be like, I got to do something. I got to do something so I can go from A to B to Z, right?
Yeah. No, I love that question, because that's the first step is the self-awareness. So if you are living a very busy life and you're running from one thing to the next and you're not really paying attention to the present moment, it's very hard to be self-aware, because you're always projecting into the future of what you have to do next. Or you might be living a little bit of your past. So being mindful, having a mindful practice of being present is really the easiest way to do that. If you're finding yourself being anxious in the future, come back to your breath and really connect inwards. As an engineer, we look at drawings, and that's what our blueprint is to build something. And the same is true within our body. So our body is a blueprint. Our body is a blueprint of what's happening in our life. So if you're experiencing any constriction in your throat or your chest feels heavy, that's all an indication of what's happening in your life. And it might be something that you want to investigate further. So I think self-awareness, the easiest way to look at it is from the body, because you can think about it, but then sometimes we're too much in our mind and we might be, playing games with it. So if we can look within a little bit deeper, and not let that mind take over, that's really where we're going to see some change. I'm not saying that mindset isn't important. I'm just saying that if you're looking at the root cause behind anything, it might be within the body versus within the mind. And if you really are serious about making some big transitions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to go over whatever your situation is. I love this. I love talking about well-being. Well-being is very simple. It's a state of being, and it's a well-lived state. So if you're finding you're living your life, you're getting all the things done you want to get done, you're receiving, you got the house, you got everything else, but you're not feeling fulfilled, that's not your state that you're in. And there's a reason why you're not feeling that joy in life. So really my ultimate goal is so that everybody lives a joyful life and enjoys it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Melanie. Thank you for coming on and being my guest today. If anyone wants to reach out to you, if they want to follow you, where can they go?
Yeah, so you can check out my website. It's Go True North. So GOTRUENORTH.net. And you can find my contact information on there. I also have a Facebook group called Healthy Empowered Professionals that can also be joined. But probably the easiest way is through the website.
Wonderful. And I'll share those for everybody in the show notes. If you are listening and you enjoyed this, I would love to hear about it. You can send me a message on Instagram. You can leave a review, whatever floats your boat. But thank you so much for joining this conversation with Melanie. I will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Elevated Femmes movement. I would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast, so please leave us a review. If you know someone who could benefit from the episodes on the show, please share it with them. We need more women elevating to their highest potential, enjoying all the great things in life, having plenty of time freedom for their children and loved ones, while growing a business that improves, not consumes their life, and doing things in a smarter, not harder way. To connect with me and download my free resources, please go to www.juliamhickman.com.